WrestleMania is coming and in just a few minutes to boot as well. But what is going on, guys? It is Ketch back with another video on the channel to my wrestling aficionados. This is going to be the WrestleMania 41 Ultimate Guide. So, or if you're new around here and you have no idea what this is about, you'll be up to speed within no time on all the WrestleMania matches and stories. But let's get straight into it. But if you're new around here, please don't forget to give this a like and a subscribe, as this has taken a long time to record and edit. So any love will be greatly appreciated. But without further ado, let's get into storyline number 1. When John Cena made CM Punk pass out in the Elimination Chamber to book his ticket to the main event of WrestleMania 41, thereby facing Cody Rhodes, few could have imagined the events that would take place shortly after. When The Rock, flanked by Travis Scott, came out to receive an answer from Cody Rhodes as to whether he would be his champion or not, Cody emphatically told The Rock to get stuffed, earning a massive pop from the Canadian crowd in attendance. And Cena was also thrilled that Cody had turned down The Rock, but few could have imagined as Cena embraced Cody, The Rock gave Cena the signal to attack Cody and signal his intention to join The Rock, and Cena did so by giving a low blow to Cody and then proceeding to attack him alongside The Rock and Travis Scott, leaving the American Nightmare a bloody mess in the ring. Now, this match has been sort of a back and forth promo battle between Cody and Cena. Cena gave his reasoning for his turning on Cody, and that was effectively because the crowd had treated him like something he wasn't. They treated him like a parrot. They treated him like someone who shouldn't have been in the main event spot, someone who didn't deserve it, someone who had handed everything to him. And this, of course, brought out Cody Rhodes, who effectively told the crowd that, you know, him and Cena had been riding buddies back in the day, back when Cena was the Super Cena era that everyone couldn't stand at the time because he used to win everything. Cody also used to go on the fact that he was Stardust and he has a bit of a lisp and he has a neck tattoo where it should be on his arm or whatever it was. And the interesting fact about this promo battle between Cena and Cody was, I don't think Cena cooked Cody as much as everyone thinks he did. Cody held his own within the battle, and Cody actually probably laid the most unique 2 shots at John Cena. The first one being that Cena was a creation of a bygone era from a man who they can't mention and is not there anymore, in referencing Vince McMahon. And the second was that nobody had ever told Cody that he couldn't wrestle, a reference to the fact that Cena only has about 3 moves and the crowd was getting really bored of him during his Super Cena era. Nowadays it's a bit more different. Cena is revered as a legend, but back when he was in his Super Cena era, no one could stand his 3 moves of doom. The other thing to note that's quite interesting about the Cena-Cody Rhodes match at WrestleMania 41 is the fact that this is John Cena's final WrestleMania. He announced his retirement at Money in the Bank last year, and everyone thought this would just be the happy retirement tour. John Cena would be shaking hands and kissing babies, but he's actually gone a different way about it. He's trying to make the fans hate him in a way which is no one has ever really seen before. And going up against Cody Rhodes, the ultimate babyface he's got, the road ahead is very difficult to make the fans hate him, but he's managed to get some very good mixed reactions in the international markets so far, where WWE has been recently. It'll be interesting to see what the American crowds and how the American crowds receive him, you know, going into WrestleMania 41. I think he's not actually advertised for the final few shows up to WrestleMania 41, so I think the next time we see him will be at WrestleMania 41, so it'll be interesting to see how the crowd responds to him. But Cena has been very serious and stern when making his entrances into the ring and really just making it all about himself. So I think I'm not going to make any predictions in this video, but I think it's going to be a fascinating match regardless. When the Shield debuted back in 2012 as enforcers for CM Punk, few could have imagined that 2/3 of the Shield would be facing CM Punk in the Night 1 main event of WrestleMania 41, but that is the exact position we have somehow landed ourselves in, and to be perfectly honest, this match has probably been in the making for about 13 years. When CM Punk did leave in 2014, he left the WWE in a bit of a hole. They didn't really know how to go about him, and he was in a lot of plans for that year's WrestleMania as well. And many thought that CM Punk would never return back to WWE, given the way he was speaking about them outside of the WWE, especially in a lot of interviews where he said he was retired and never going back. But then when he returned to wrestling back in 2022, I believe it was, with AEW, a massive splash in AEW and got a lot of people offside there, Tony Khan and Jack Perry included. Few could have imagined that he would return back to WWE, but amazingly, in November of 2023 at Survivor Series, CM Punk made his long-awaited return to the WWE. Now, unfortunately for CM Punk, he was offset by an injury caused by Drew McIntyre at the 2024 Royal Rumble, which effectively ruled him out of any competing at WrestleMania 40. And one of CM Punk's lifelong ambitions has been to main event WrestleMania in general. He's never done it, but this year he will be main eventing WrestleMania 41 alongside Seth Rollins and the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns, and somehow, somewhere, Paul Heyman is caught up in all the middle of this. Now, if you don't know, Paul Heyman is the wise man of the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns. He's been on the island of relevancy for the last 5 years as Reigns has been the Tribal Chief. But recently, since CM Punk has come back, there's been a little bit of back and forth between Punk and Reigns, a little bit of edginess, a little bit of tension over where Paul Heyman's loyalties actually lie. Now, a lot was made in the aftermath of Survivor Series. If you don't know, in Survivor Series 2025, CM Punk joined Roman Reigns' team to even up the odds in a 5-on-5 match against Solo Sikoa's team, with the provision that Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman owed him a favor in the future. Now, this favor went on and on forever and ever, and no one really knew what it was. Many people thought that, Punk was using this favor with Heyman to, finally get his main event match at WrestleMania 41. And when the contract signing happened a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown in London, Punk did finally get his wish, which he was quite teary alongside Paul Heyman. And it was just such a touching thing to finally see CM Punk getting that main event moment. However, at the end of that show, he goes, "Even though I acknowledge you, my Tribal Chief Roman Reigns, and thank you for this main event moment, that is not actually the favor." And on the following episode of SmackDown, the favor was finally revealed. CM Punk wants Paul Heyman in his corner at WrestleMania 41, and Roman Reigns was effectively told Heyman to tell Punk no, but Paul Heyman surprisingly told Reigns, "I cannot say no to CM Punk," effectively suggesting that he will be in CM Punk's corner for WrestleMania 41. However, on the most recent episode of Monday Night Raw, I guess a bit of the forgotten member of this triple threat, Seth Rollins, sort of played into Paul Heyman's emotions a bit more and goes, what about, if I hit you? What about if I get you out of this triple threat? What if you're not playing a part? It should just be between him, Reigns, and Punk. And that, of course, brought out CM Punk, and Punk came to Paul Heyman's rescue and effectively warded off Rollins, but it ended with Rollins giving Punk a stomp in the middle of the ring, and he was about to give Paul Heyman a stomp as well, but stopped short of that to say to Paul Heyman that now you owe me a favor as well. Now, this is quite interesting because there's a lot to play into with Roman Reigns and CM Punk, but with Seth Rollins in the mix as well, it makes for a very interesting dynamic. Personally think there's something that's going to happen at WrestleMania 41 that might involve Paul Heyman siding with Seth Rollins. It might even involve something else. It might involve, I don't think it's going to happen, but it might involve a returning Brock Lesnar, and that could set up a fatal four-way at SummerSlam at some point down the line. But if we're just talking about the triple threat between Reigns, Rollins, and Punk, it's going to be a very interesting match. And the other unique thing about it is that neither Reigns nor Rollins has been able to beat Punk with the other's help. It happened back in the Shield days. It's happened as more recent as the Steel Cage, in which Rollins beat Punk in the Steel Cage, but only because Reigns had pulled him out of the cage. So I definitely think this match has got so much to give, and from a storyline perspective, definitely deserved to main event at least one of the nights. It goes on night one's main event, but I do think the whole main event wording needs to be changed, and I'll explain why with the next few matches. One of the main things that's bugged me about WrestleMania is the fact that whoever wins the Royal Rumble has not necessarily main evented WrestleMania over those years, one of the notable exceptions being Cody Rhodes, who won back-to-back and did in fact main event WrestleManias. But I think it's the language they use at the Royal Rumble where they say that whoever wins the Royal Rumble will main event WrestleMania. And now this is not true in this year's WrestleMania, where Jey Uso and Charlotte Flair, both of which who won their respective Royal Rumble matches, neither of whom are actually in the main event of WrestleMania. They're in good championship matches, but neither of them are actually in the main event, the final show of WrestleMania 41 on either night 1 or night 2. Which brings me to the Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton storyline. Now, Charlotte Charlotte was out of action after tearing her ACL. In 2024, I think she missed WrestleMania 40 and spent the next year on the shelf nursing her ACL back to full habilitation. At the Royal Rumble event, she made her return, dominated and won the match, going on to face Tiffany Stratton, actually selecting Tiffany Stratton at WrestleMania 41. Tiffany herself won that championship by cashing in her Money in the Bank briefcase on Nia Jax to a thunderous applause on an episode of SmackDown. And I think this is one of the matches that WWE has sort of set in motion as one of the dream matches. Both are blonde, both are very athletic, both are very, very good. But I feel like in this feud, Charlotte has tried to assert her authority on Tiffany Stratton, going off the script numerous times in a bid to sort of put the young gun under fire. However, Tiffany would fire back of her own in the latest episode of SmackDown, where both would go off the script, where Tiffany landing probably the biggest blow, where she was like, after WrestleMania, you will be alone like you've always have been, and you'll also be 0-3, which is like your divorces, a reference to the fact that Charlotte has been divorced 3 times in her personal life. This was a sort of a lot of people thought it was a bit of a cruel jab, but the fact that Charlotte had gone off script numerous times prior to this, a lot of people didn't really feel too upset with Charlotte. They were like, yeah, whatever, you know, we don't really like her. And that's the thing that Charlotte has struggled with. She's sort of got this bit of an ego complex, and the fans are finding it really difficult to sort of either get behind or boo. They're sort of just giving her not so much the silent treatment, but they're just like, yeah, we don't want you on our TV screens, it should be someone else. And I think that it was sort of reflected when she was like, why has Kaiser been in my DMs? If you don't know, Ludwig Kaiser is the boyfriend of Tiffany Stratton, and Kaiser himself responded to it on Instagram by replying to a comment on, I think it was a Charlotte story, "Don't flatter yourself, honey." And I found this quite funny. And I don't think anyone in their right mind would leave Tiffany Stratton, but the fact that Charlotte had to stoop so low to that level to make that jibe in response to Tiffany's pretty brutal jab of her own sort of suggests to me that this is going to be a quite personal feud going into WrestleMania 41 if it isn't already. And I think Charlotte might be a bit lackluster in her match with Tiffany, but you know, she generally is a pretty good worker, and I think she'll put on a good show at WrestleMania 41. I just hope Tiffany doesn't get too starstruck being in the ring against Charlotte Flair. I mean, Charlotte is a 14-time world champion, I believe it is, and you know, she's very experienced in the ring, but she has, as I said earlier, has this really big ego complex. I think she's better than everyone else, so we'll see how this match goes. It's going to be quite personal. Wouldn't be surprised if it gets a little bit bloody as well. Keeping with the theme of Royal Rumble winners, we head to the men's Royal Rumble winner Jey Uso, who has been over with the crowd for the best part of 2 years now, and he finally gets his big championship match at WrestleMania 41, going up against the World Heavyweight Champion Gunther, who I swear has been champion for about 80% of his time in WWE, whether that be World Heavyweight Champion, Intercontinental Champion, or NXT UK Champion. So Jey Uso has it all up against himself against Gunther at WrestleMania 41, but I think now will be the time for WWE to finally crown Jey Uso and for him to finally step out of the shadow of his cousin Roman Reigns and finally capture that big singles championship that he has richly deserved. However, if you look at the other corner, Gunther has a fantastic track record as champion. However, his WrestleMania record remains to be seen. He did beat Drew McIntyre and Sheamus a couple years ago at WrestleMania 39. However, his historic title reign as Intercontinental Champion came to an end at WrestleMania 40 at the hands of Sami Zayn, and in Gunther's own words, his father was disappointed that he lost on the grandest stage of them all. So Gunther will be also looking to prove a point by winning at WrestleMania 41, and this feud was getting a little bit lackluster. Like Jey Uso and Gunther were sort of going back and forth. However, it sort of picked up in severity a couple weeks ago when Jimmy Uso stepped up to Gunther, gave him a big slap, and then the week after faced Gunther on Raw, lost to Gunther as you would imagine, and then as Gunther escaped from Jey Uso and Jey Uso was taking Jimmy back to the back to get looked at by the trainers, Gunther sneak attacked him from behind and zip tied Jey Uso to the ring, and then proceeded to absolutely batter Jimmy Uso, leaving him a bloody mess in the ring and covering himself with all of Jimmy Uso's blood as Jey Uso helplessly watched on. And it was quite an emotional viewing point from Jey Uso's perspective, but from Gunther's perspective, it showed the evil villainy that the Austrian history and has in his repertoire, and it just gave this feud a bit of a punch that it so deservedly needed. And it sort of even came a little bit more a week later on the most recent episode of Raw, when Jey Uso was saying to Gunther that he is no longer afraid of him anymore, and he is going to finally be World Heavyweight Champion at WrestleMania 41. That remains to be seen. It'll probably be a fantastic match. Both are really good workers, and personally, I really do think this match could have main evented WrestleMania 41 as well, but there was just some really higher promising storylines that took precedent, which is unfortunate considering how Royal Rumble winners should main event WrestleMania but don't necessarily get to main event them unless you're a certain name like Cody Rhodes. But maybe they'll change that in a few years, I don't know. But for what it's worth, I think Gunther and Jey Uso will be a fantastic match. The Women's World Championship on Raw has definitely provided some entertaining value over the last couple of months, as the Royal Rumble winner Charlotte had picked Tiffany Stratton on SmackDown as her match at WrestleMania 41. It left Women's World Champion Rhea Ripley without an opponent, one which we believed had been sorted when Bianca Belair won the Elimination Chamber match. However, Rhea Ripley would then lose her championship to Io Sky in the main event of Raw a couple months ago, and then subsequently lost her rematch against Io Sky when Bianca Belair as referee when Bianca got involved, and Rhea effectively decided then to take matters into her own hands, deciding to enter herself into the match between Io Sky and Bianca Belair, effectively making it a triple threat match, which Raw GM Adam Pearce had vehemently tried to veto but couldn't get his way around Rhea Ripley strong-arming herself into the match. And because the fact that Rhea Ripley decided, and Bianca Belair as well, had decided to try and get in each other's faces and disrespect the champion Io Sky, this effectively then forced Io Sky into taking matters into her own hands, which by that product had also meant that Adam Pearce no longer could make this a one-on-one match. He had to include Rhea Ripley into the triple threat match as well. Now, I believe Triple H wanted to make this a Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley match. However, given the popularity of Io Sky and the fact that she is so damn good in the ring, he couldn't look past her, and that's why he stuck the championship on her as well. As I think that if Io Sky was not the champion in this match, then it would have just made her be a bit more overlooked. But the fact that she is champion, she has a lot riding on it as well, going into her second successive WrestleMania as champion. Didn't work out so well for her last year, losing to Bayley, but I think in a triple threat where anything can happen, it might just be that Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, knock 7 bills out of each other, and then Io comes in for the win at the end. But I think that this story is so interesting because the crowd is booing Bianca Belair. She's meant to be on the good guy's side. She's meant to be a babyface, and Rhea is obviously a babyface as well. But for some reason, the fans are deciding to just love Rhea Ripley and boo the hell out of Bianca Belair. So she sort of had to act as a heel on the fly, with Io Sky sort of stuck in the middle sort of thing. So, I think going into WrestleMania, this is going to be a fascinating match, and could have easily main evented one of the nights at WrestleMania 41. But again, backstage politics, maybe high priority storylines probably got in the way, but I still think this is going to be a phenomenal match. Rivalry between AJ Styles and Logan Paul has been intensifying over recent months, leading to their highly anticipated match at WrestleMania 41. Now, the tension began at the Royal Rumble in January when AJ Styles made a surprise return with his old entrance music from injury to participate in the match. However, during the event, Logan Paul, who had jumped over the rope onto the announce table, got behind Styles and then eliminated him as he was on the ring apron, igniting the animosity between the two. And then following the Royal Rumble, during the roster shakeup, Styles was transferred to Raw, and on the March 31st episode of Raw, which was broadcast from London, Styles called out Logan Paul for a face-to-face confrontation. The exchange grew heated as they argued over past incidents, including the Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber events, and then Paul would also taunt the London audience and suggest that Styles was seeking a high-profile match and proposing they settle their differences at WrestleMania. Personally, I think that Styles could be doing better at WrestleMania 41. However, given who was available at such short notice, I doubt they could have gone with anyone else. And although the match wasn't officially confirmed during the broadcast, WWE later announced it on their social media that Styles and Logan Paul would face each other at WrestleMania 41. I'm personally eager to see how this feud will culminate on the grandest stage of them all. Logan Paul, I believe, I think he's 0-2 in matches, at least in recent WrestleManias. I know he had a win with The Miz a couple of years ago, but I think AJ Styles probably deserves this win just as much. He lost to LA Knight at last year's WrestleMania. You know, it could be a stage of AJ Styles' career where he's trying to elevate new talent as well. And I think, you know, if he puts over Logan Paul, then, you know, so be it. You know, that's the way AJ Styles is, but I do think AJ Styles has one massive run left in him, and let's hope for a very fascinating match between these two at WrestleMania 41. The feud between LA Knight and Jacob Fatu has been building over the past few months, culminating in their upcoming match for the United States Championship at WrestleMania 41. Now, this feud began back in early 2025 when Jacob Fatu had begun a feud with Braun Strowman, the monster among men. Now, the animosity between the two big men had led to several confrontations, including a match at Saturday night's main event where Fatu lost to Strowman via disqualification, and this feud would then continue with both superstars participating in the Royal Rumble, during which Strowman would eliminate Fatu. The rivalry between the two big men reached a climax on the April 4th episode of SmackDown, with Fatu defeating Strowman in a last man standing match, earning the opportunity to challenge LA Knight for the United States Championship at WrestleMania 41. Knight, by comparison, who could reclaim the US Championship by defeating Shinsuke Nakamura on the March 7th episode of SmackDown, has been a dominant champion, and following Fatu's victory over Strowman, Knight addressed his upcoming challenger, stating, "Jacob Fatu is a man who's determined to get beat by the man." Now, I'm personally very invested in this match myself. I love LA Knight, and I think he's probably going to be one of WWE's rising stars after WrestleMania 41. But Jacob Fatu, on the other hand, has had a stormer late 2024 since his debut, and then into 2025 as well, and he is a serious big threat. So much of a threat that he's actually relegated Solo Sikoa back to right hand man, a place that Fatu had done really well alongside Sikoa when Sikoa was challenging Cody Rhodes prior. So I think that this match has a lot going for it as well. I think fans are going to be severely invested in it, and I can't wait to see it personally. Amazingly, the women's tag team titles will be defended at WrestleMania 41 between the current champions Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez of the Judgment Day, going up against a gauntlet between Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, Bayley and the women's IC champion Lyra Valkyria, Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, Michin and B-Fab, Piper Niven and Alba Fire, and Natalya and Maxine Dupree. Now, one of these six teams will get the chance to face the Judgment Day at WrestleMania 41, and to be perfectly honest, it doesn't matter who it is. I don't think Liv or Raquel are going to be dropping these titles to anyone. I think they are the champions moving forward. In terms of who I think will be the actual challengers, it's probably going to be Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. They seem they're probably the best team on paper. It's really weird that Lyra Valkyria is going to be probably in this match, considering she is the women's intercontinental champion, and the fact that Chelsea Green wasn't even considered to be in this match as the women's United States champion. I do personally think that both Lyra and Chelsea should have defended their individual titles, but I guess there isn't enough space on the WrestleMania card, so there had to be some provisions included, and you know, the women's tag team titles are being defended. So we'll see who wins that gauntlet match on the upcoming episode of SmackDown, but I do think that Liv and Raquel will still be champions after WrestleMania 41. The feud between Jade Cargill and Naomi has reached a personal flashpoint, and this all began back on the November 22nd episode of SmackDown when Jade Cargill was found attacked by an unknown assailant in the parking lot and was ruled unable to compete for the foreseeable future. Now, during Cargill's absence, Naomi volunteered to replace Cargill as one half of the then WWE Women's Tag Team Champions alongside Bianca Belair. Naomi and Belair would then also launch their own investigation into who attacked Jade Cargill. They came to the wrong assumption that it was Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, as they saw some video footage of the pair walking away from Cargill's place of attack. However, They then agreed to defend their tag titles against Raquel and Liv Morgan, where they ended up losing the tag team titles. However, both Belair and Naomi would qualify for the Women's Elimination Chamber at the namesake event. However, even before the match had begun, Jade Cargill made her return and seemingly was going to go for Liv Morgan before viciously attacking Naomi, who was then deemed unable to medically compete in the Elimination Chamber. And on the following episode of SmackDown, Naomi revealed herself as Cargill's attacker and regretted not doing it sooner, thus turning Naomi heel for the first time since 2016 of all things. And unfortunately, Bianca Belair subsequently walked out on Naomi, ending their partnership and friendship as well. And in the following weeks, while Cargill and Naomi continued to attack each other, eventually SmackDown General Manager Nick Aldis announced that both Cargill and Naomi would face each other at WrestleMania 41. Now, this is a really personal sort of match, I believe, because of the nature of Jade Cargill's attack, which was so brutal and left her pretty much on the shelf for a number of months. And given where this rivalry has gotten to and the fact that Bianca Belair has moved on, is a good thing, because I think if Bianca Belair was in the middle of this, it would have affected her plans for WrestleMania, and the fact that it's between just Jade Cargill and Naomi is a good thing, as it finally gives these two a place to settle their differences. The Fatal 4-Way for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania has finally reached its flashpoint, with Raw GM Adam Pearce making the match official between Bron Breakker, the Intercontinental Champion, Penta, and the Judgment Day's Dominic Mysterio and Finn Balor. Now, Bron Breakker has been on a dominant Intercontinental Championship reign, showcasing his strength and resilience in numerous title defenses, and his reign has solidified his reputation as a formidable competitor on the WWE roster, and he's probably put himself in line for a big singles push post WrestleMania 41. Penta has also emerged as a very unique contender as well, and since making his WWE debut has only been pinned once and has rapidly ascended through the ranks. His unique style as lucha libre and his in-ring prowess has earned him a spot in this high stakes match, marking his first technically his second opportunity at WWE Gold. But probably the most interesting part of this match is the Judgment Day's internal strife. The alliance between Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio has definitely showed signs of tensions in recent months, and recent interactions suggest that underlying issues could influence their performance in the Fatal 4-Way match at WrestleMania 41, with Liv Morgan stating in a backstage segment on the most recent episode of Raw that as long as one of them brings the IC Championship back to the clubhouse, that is good for the Judgment Day as a whole, but she's definitely pining for Dominic Mysterio to definitely have that gold. And this match sort of got its conception, if you will, on the March 31st episode of Raw in a tag team match that featured Breakker teaming with Penta against Finn and Dominic. The match concluded with Balor and Mysterio securing the victory after Breakker had accidentally speared Penta, which adds even more complexity to the dynamics among the four competitors. And the outcome of this match did play a crucial role in setting up the Fatal 4-Way match at WrestleMania 41. The rivalry between the Latino World Order, the LWO, and American Made will culminate at WrestleMania 41 when Rey Mysterio takes on El Grande Americano, which is just Chad Gable in disguise, which no one actually knows about as of yet, but everyone should know that it is Chad Gable under that mask. Chad Gable has had a lucha libre problem for months, and he went away to try and finally solve his lucha libre problem, and he came back with El Grande Americano. Now, everyone thought at first that it was just Chad Gable, but after a few backstage segments where Chad Gable was getting interviewed, a second person was arrested as El Grande Americano in the background, which then fooled everyone into thinking maybe El Grande Americano is someone else. However, this match at WrestleMania 41 has come to fruition, with Rey Mysterio wanting this match after American Made and El Grande Americano won a match on the most recent episode of Raw in which they cheated to win with Ivy Nile giving something to El Grande Americano, which effectively got him the win over Dragon Lee and the rest of the LWO. And it is really cool to see Rey Mysterio in yet another WrestleMania match. However, personally, this match in particular just does not have any sort of fire going for it, and the only reason it's there is to make up for the fact that Kevin Owens and Randy Orton's match at WrestleMania 41 has had to be cancelled due to Kevin Owens sustaining an injury. I think Rey Mysterio will win this quite comfortably and unmask El Grande Americano as Chad Gable in the process. And yeah, I don't think this will be a long match at all, maybe 5 minutes tops, to be perfectly honest. But that has been the end of this video, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Please don't forget to leave this a like and a subscribe on the video, as it took forever to record and edit, so any love and appreciation will be greatly accepted. And yeah, let me know what you think of all the matches going into WrestleMania 41. Let me know who you think's gonna win. There may be a predictions video dropping, there might not. I've tried to sort of sprinkle in some predictions throughout this video. But yeah, that has been the end of it, guys. I hope